by going over what is some of the most recent research. So we'll start there.
Well, it's kind of interesting. The guys in Japan are back up to it. I mean, these guys are always doing some sort of really neat stuff with something kind of uncommon here in the United States, and that's K2, vitamin K2. And what they found are, vitamin K compounds, and A2, and there's K2, the MK4, the MK7. We use a lot of the MK7, like for instance in our AD-K2 combo, which has got vitamin A, D, and K2. What they found was that using the K2, along with some of the retinoids from vitamin A, kind of sounds like we're getting into a combination here, right? That actually helped some of the diseases, like helped regenerate lost neurons, okay? So in other words, you can regrow neurons. And it's because they were really working on things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on. A lot of these diseases, we've probably seen more, oh gosh.
Neurodegenerative diseases. I mean, we're seeing definitely an increase.
In the past 10 years, it's been like an explosion, like the big ripe watermelon falling off the back of a truck. It just exploded,
Right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing because it's everywhere. And they did some neat work. So and the kind of thing about it is, when you think about it, this is part of the real food diet. Getting K2. Where do you get K2? All right, grass-fed butter. Nobody eats that anymore. You got margarines and all kind of other toxic chemicals that they use instead of butter.
Tastes like butter.
Oh yeah, it tastes like butter. I can't believe it's not, or whatever.
I can't believe it's not.
Yeah, and so that stuff. And then the vitamin A. We don't eat enough of the animal fats and so on to pick up the vitamin A. So we're kind of at a deficit there.
And even the eggs, which do have K2 in the yolk, it has to be really bright orange to have K2 in it.
The darker the orange,
and if you see,
better.
Most of the eggs you get today are not.
The yellow.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can get some, because we buy a few brands.
There's a couple brands
that are actually, they're usually the most expensive eggs you can find. And they say that they are pastured and they don't, aren't in chicken houses and things like that. And their yolks really are bright orange.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
You get some farm fresh eggs that are.
As long as they're fed right.
Yeah.
I've had a few people bring us eggs that are not bright orange. So it depends on what the chickens eat. So if you do have chickens out there, make sure you feed them right.
They got to have green grass.
Yeah.
They got to have things that are green. That's where you pick up K. And
Right.
of course, their body metabolizes that into K2. And of course, when they have an egg, then it's got a lot of K2 in it. That yolk's got a lot of K2. Because that's got to feed a whole new chicken, right there. So.
It was weird the first time I had a farm fresh egg and I cracked it open. I was like, I don't know if this egg's any good. It was orange.
Yeah, you're like,
It's
the
wrong color, right?
This is not a good egg. I'm gonna have to throw this one out. Then I realized it's like when I did some homework, I was like, oh, that's actually really good.
Yeah, that's
really
actually
good.
got more nutrients.
And the flavor was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think even though this was kind of interesting, that they're onto this, and because they're actually making these compounds, taking the K2 and putting it together with these retinoids. Which, okay, let's hope our body does that. That's the key.
Right.
Our body should be able to do that. And maybe it did, because if you go back long enough, we didn't have Alzheimer's. We didn't have all that stuff.
Of course, that's your body's supposed to do that naturally, as long as what you're putting in your body
is correct.
Right. It's got to have raw materials. That's the key, raw materials. And the raw materials are, I guess, farm fresh eggs, for one. And people, and for years they tabooed, oh my God, if you eat an egg, you're going to die tomorrow. Well, that's not true. Okay, so we found
tons of eggs.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, they told everybody, oh, stop eating eggs. They were terrible for you. Raise your cholesterol 2 points, and it'll be bad. And so that's the kind of thing that happened. And all because of that, we've got a diet, and especially in America, that is so devoid of these natural compounds. It's not even funny. I mean, it's sad. It really is.
Yeah, when I was back in my working on cruise ships, and we were in Europe, it's like you can eat as much as you want over there, and well, I say that within moderation. You can still eat a good bit of food over there. Like just going to lunch today, and it's like by 2 o'clock it's here, you're just ready to go to bed. Yeah. Because of the junk that's in your food, right? But there. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, it does what it's supposed to do. It energizes your body and keeps you going, and it's like such a different feeling. I felt like I could eat as much as I wanted over there and never felt full, never felt bloated, never felt like I was about to pass out when I was done.
Yeah.
Just
portions, for one thing, they don't give you as big of portions. And here, the portions are way too big.
And not just here, but here in the U.S., but also here in South
exactly
Pacific.
where we are. It's even worse.
folks pride themselves on portion size.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you see those specials on television where you pay an additional $6 and you can bring home a second entree for dinner later tonight. I don't need a second entree because I'm taking home what's left of lunch.
Yeah.
And that's plenty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's wild. So yes, as long as it's what's going in helps your body do the things that it's supposed to do. And,
And like I said, K2 is good for other things too. So it's not
Bone density
just
is a big-
about, bone density is a big thing, because without K2, your body doesn't use vitamin D properly. And without vitamin A either. So that's why we do ADK2, because for bone density, it's very important. But also with K2, it helps get plaque out of the arteries. So, I mean, that's another big thing. So
the plaque that you don't need.
the plaque you
That
don't,
you don't need, right,
Yeah,
right.
right. I don't think anybody needs plaque in their arteries.
Well, unless you mentioned if it's for, like it will put it up if something is being repaired. If the
Yes.
artery's being,
Well,
yeah.
that's what it's doing.
But
It's
even
trying to
then,
repair.
you want to do things that don't damage the inside lining of the
part.
arteries.
There's
So
the
you don't
key.
have to lay down plaque. So that's actually part of it. Is
Yeah.
you don't want the damage and you don't want the plaque to have to repair.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned multiple times, vitamin D, it affects a host of things in your body.
It does.
From,
And
like,
actually, some of the
physical to psychological.
research we're fixing to get to is going to talk some of the
Yeah.
things about vitamin D. That's actually the next one.
Which most people post-COVID are now back to being
Deficient. We're
Whenever we-
seeing the majority of the people
Yeah.
that we do lab work on is deficient in vitamin D.
Well, this is some really interesting research about low levels of D. And this is something that we've seen. I mean, post-COVID, people were taking enough D because they were scared to death, okay? But now they've stopped. Hell, COVID's no big deal. We ain't going to do that stuff. So we're getting back into where we're seeing deficiencies. I mean, we
And
see some
really
single-digit
and
deficiencies.
some severe. That's what I was
Well.
going to say. Some severe deficiencies.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see people, I'm like, no wonder you don't feel good.
Right. Yeah. And they're talking about, like, the problem with D is when you don't have enough, you're more likely to perceive pain differently. Oh yes. And this little study talked about, I think it was done out of New Zealand. No, what? Sao Paulo? Yeah, Brazil. Right. Okay. Anyhow, what they found was the females that were having breast surgery, like removing a breast.
Mastectomy.
Right, and which is usually fairly painful. A lot of pretty severe type of operation there. And the ones that were low, they had a double-blind thing where nobody knew. The patients didn't know. The doctors and nurses staff didn't know. So it was a really neat little
Nobody
study.
knew which ones were low in vitamin D and
Right.
which ones weren't.
And
They
which ones-
knew ahead of time. Of course, the people doing the study,
Yeah.
they took two different groups with the same, one had a deficiency, one did not. They had them in the same age group.
Right.
So it was all the same age group, but different. One had deficiencies, one did not. And what they found was the ones that didn't have deficiency, didn't have the pain, didn't ask for pain pills. I mean, it was a huge difference
It's big.
in pain after the surgery. And
Wow.
so that was actually pretty,
telling.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
And
think
but
about
what
it.
we see with vitamin D deficiency is that people hurt all over. People that come in with just aches and pains everywhere, a lot of times it is a vitamin D deficiency, and it's one of the easiest things to fix. I mean, I do say vitamin D deficiency is easy. I mean, we have, like I said, our ADK2 is what we use the most, and people take it and can immediately tell a difference. And it's inexpensive. It's, the thing is with vitamin D, but you do need to have your levels checked. Check your level so you know where you are. Know if you need to take extra or not, because you can get too much. So you don't want to just overdo it like people did in COVID, but you do want to get adequate amounts.
Yeah, that's a biggie. And right along with that, this is another one on vitamin D that I thought was
Yep.
great. And this one came about vitamin D and a group of females that were having chemotherapy for breast
For
cancer.
breast cancer. They're both on breast cancer.
Both of them, it's kind of interesting that both
Yeah.
of them popped up, current research on breast cancer and how it's affected. But they show that the subjects that were getting the vitamin D actually supercharged the chemotherapy. They did better.
They did a lot better.
It worked a lot better.
It was much more likely,
Yeah.
almost double, on whether the cancer
increased
was
by
gone-
79%.
Yeah, whether the cancer would be gone or not if you took D with the chemo. So it was definitely, vitamin D plays a huge role. And even in one of these studies, I think it was the first one, the group that they used were 42 and 43 years of age. I thought, oh my gosh, there was a lot of people in that group
young.
too. So that just shows you that
Very
people are
young.
getting breast
Very young.
cancer at a younger age, which is kind of scary on its own.
Yeah.
So you do want to make sure D is something that you can take and can control and can see how much you get. So that's an easy test. It's an easy thing to take. And so why wouldn't everybody have optimal vitamin D?
And there's also like a psychological side to D deficiencies.
Well, it's just it makes depression.
Yeah,
It makes
mood.
depression.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a deficiency in vitamin D makes you more depressed. Makes you more depressed, makes you hurt all over, makes you get sick more often, because it definitely affects the immune system. So that's why I say D is one of those simple things that it just shocks me that people are still not taking their D.
Yeah. 'Cause something kind of interesting came out in some research not too long ago. It's not last month. This is maybe a year or so ago. Every cell in our body has a VDR. That's a vitamin D receptor. So in other words, every cell in your body needs it and actually has a specialized receptor for vitamin D. That's pretty big. Every cell in your body. Think about that. You know, not just the breast cancer stuff, or not just the heart or anything like that. Every cell in your body.
I mean, that's telling on how vitamin D is so beneficial to everything that happens.
It is.
No, yeah, just name something. Yeah, vitamin D is good for that. You know,
And like I said, during COVID, we saw less deficiency. We still saw deficiencies, but we saw a lot less because everybody was scared of COVID. You should just be scared of just getting sick. I mean, to me, you should be afraid that you're going to get sick. So you want to do stuff for overall health, and that's one of the things you want to do is vitamin D.
yeah, well, it's just like, you know, we're talking about just getting sick, any kind of sickness.
Any kind of sick.
Think about the NASCAR driver, the young guy, what, 41?
Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch, 41 years old. He went septic, and you know, and he had a problem. Of course, him being the kind of guy where he's going to push, and he pushed, you know, right there, and they didn't treat him aggressively enough, obviously, and it went septic.
Yeah,
And it was pneumonia that
it was a pneumonia. Simple as pneumonia.
You don't have to be older to get sick. And if you are older, then you're more likely to
You're
get
more
sick.
likely.
So that's even, and the older people a lot of times are who we see the big deficiencies, although the young people are real deficient. Your real
Right.
young people are very deficient.
Right.
Nobody's outside anymore. D, when it comes to D deficiency, part of it is everybody being indoors.
Yeah.
And if they do go outdoors, they wear sunscreen the whole time. If you're one that burns easy, go out the first 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes without sunscreen.
Yeah.
Then put it on. But you don't want to not ever get any sun. I just don't think that's good for a lot of reasons, not just for vitamin D. I think there's so many things that the sun does that we don't know about. And if you think about it, people used to always be outside.
Yeah.
Well, it was too hot inside, so they had to stay outside.
Right.
That part.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I sunburn.
Yeah.
Pretty easily, but I don't get out as much as I used to, but I still try to get out every day, at least just to get some of that, even if it's just like straight in through the top of my head.
Yes.
I definitely like to sit in the sun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt.
All right, what's next?
Well, that was a really good one on the cancer. The other thing that we're going to talk about is something, it's a fairly common thing called niacinamide. And they actually showed, now if anybody out there has glaucoma, pay attention, because glaucoma is a fairly common eye problem. The pressure gets in the eye and, you know, builds up, and so it causes all kind of problems. And they showed that something as simple as a 500 milligram capsule of this niacinamide on a daily basis increased and they did it for 6 months, quality of life. In other words, they could function better.
And it slowed the progression.
Slowed the progression.
So they did find that it slowed progression. And niacinamide, I mean, it's in the B vitamin family. It does not flush you the way niacin does. And so it was specifically done on niacinamide, not niacin. And it has such good results with a few different things.
This little study is actually published in the Journal of Dermatology. So what's this connection between the skin and the heart? Well, it seems that they were looking at people that were taking niacinamide because it is good for preventing skin cancer.
Yeah, so much of the research is about skin cancer prevention, which is a big thing. And even we have a lot of dermatologists send people to our office to get niacinamide because it is so good for skin cancer prevention, and it's very inexpensive. And for that, you take 2 a day. So you take 2 500 milligrams a day for skin cancer. But what this study looked at is people that were taking it for skin cancer prevention, and what else they found.
Yeah, big thing, reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. Yeah, they said the people in the study, and their conclusion, which kind of says the whole thing, Niacinamide supplementation is associated with reductions in certain types of cardiovascular events, think heart attacks and strokes, okay? Supporting the use, okay, and what they were talking about was reducing the ST elevation or the ST spike, which you'll hear a lot of people talk about if you've been around heart attack people, and that they had it, it reduced that myocardial infarction. That's big. Something as simple as a very inexpensive niacinamide.
Wow, and this has been around forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, literally.
It has.
And I see. I remember. I see in social media, specifically TikTok. They're like it's going in toothpaste.
Yep. They're actually. I use a face cream that has niacinamide, so it's also going in face creams. So they're using it in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So something as simple, like I said, as niacinamide, and you think it's simple, but it helps a lot of different things.
What are some of the other things that you guys have in office that has niacinamide in it?
Well, all your B
complexes.
B complexes, things like that. Yeah. So
a lot of multis.
Yeah, things with B vitamins in it is going to have your, and a lot of times it is in the niacinamide form, but not near as high of a dose.
Right.
I mean, when you start looking at what's in a B complex and what's in a multi, if it has niacinamide, it may actually have 10, 20 milligrams. The capsules we have of niacinamide are 500 milligrams. And the studies actually show, like for skin cancer prevention, they definitely say you need 1,000. You need 500 twice a day is what it says. Mm-hmm. And so that's what even they were looking at for the cardiovascular risk, or people that were taking it for skin cancer prevention, which is that dose. Now they talked about glaucoma quality of life was only 1 a day. So, but I would probably say do 2 a day and make sure you get the other benefits as well.
Yeah.
And our bottle, I believe our bottle of niacinamide is 100 capsules, so it's almost a 2-month supply when you take 2 a day.
And this is, are there, I mean, aside from glaucoma, skin cancers, what other things are you using it for?
Cellular energy.
So, yeah.
I mean, anything that's got niacin in it is going to increase something called NAD. We've talked about NAD before, because that's the pusher, if you will. That's the chemical that pushes the mitochondria to make energy, to make ATP.
And if you look at a lot of the anti-aging things for mitochondria and for NAD production is somewhat from niacin. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's nicotinamide riboside, you have the nicotide mononucleotide. I mean, there's a lot of variations, and we have all those. And we do use them for energy, and we use them for anti-aging. But there's some of those forms that are probably better for that. But still, niacinamide by itself is definitely never going to hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Next week, we are going to, so June is it Alzheimer's awareness or brain health?
It's actually both. It's Alzheimer's and Brain Health Awareness Month is what it said.
And
we talk about that a lot anyway.
When you've said multiple times that this is one of those ailments, rather, diseases that are like beginning to show up much earlier than they used to.
Yeah, oh yeah, I used to. Well,
more.
You think about it, like now I'm aging myself, but when I was in school, there was no such thing as Alzheimer's. Okay, it just wasn't there. We had some senile dementia, things like that. Yeah, people forget a little bit, but it was just almost, it was unheard of, really. And granted, that was a while back, but it's not that far back. The Earth wasn't still cooling off or anything like that. So it was a big thing. And now it's common. I mean, oh my God, we don't have anybody come in probably to talk about some sort of brain thing that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 people in their family, that's got some sort of, they've been diagnosed.
And even people themselves, they come in and their biggest issue is memory.
Yeah.
They're like, it's scaring me. I hear that every day. Yeah. And I mean, they're still okay, but they're like, it's scaring me. I'm not remembering anything anymore. So we have a lot of these chemicals in our environment are affecting the brain and all the microplastics. They know that, so there's tons of research on that too.
And we'll be talking about a lot of that next week.
We'll get into all that next week about different and things you can do to make your brain healthier in general. Because if you just make your brain healthier, then you're going to help prevent Alzheimer's as well.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And that's just one piece of like the dementia.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot to it, and like I said, it's just kind of scary how much it's increased. I mean, we've been doing this for 30 years. We talked about that this morning. We couldn't believe we've been doing it for 30 years. And we really didn't used to see as much. And I know it's been 30 years ago, but we've seen a huge increase, I would say, in the past 10 years.
Oh yeah, huge. We're talking about huge. Again, that big fat watermelon falls off the truck and it explodes. And that's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, before that, occasionally we'd see something, but now it's just, it's unbelievable. the number, and of course look at the stats and stuff coming out of the FDA and CDC, where they monitor this stuff and kind of try to get a grasp of it, and it's just unbelievable. So yeah, it's something that we really need to pay more attention to.
Yeah, it's I don't really worry about a lot of things, but kind of outliving my brain is one of those things that is, it's like, it's the thing that's, if I'm going to lie awake at night, can't get to sleep, is because I can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people worry about it, especially with so many people's family members having a problem.
I have one.
And I do too. It runs in my family. So I definitely do everything we talk about next week, I'm already doing.
All right, there we go. Listen, and that's, if we didn't answer your questions or you were too shy to call and ask a question, totally get it. Reach out to them. You can go to the clinic there on Cowan Road. If you turn south on Cowan from Pass Road, it's on the left. Big sign like this, you can't miss it. YouTube channel is very active. Tons of content. You can get the weekly newsletter every Sunday by signing up at doctorsnutrition.com. You would also find out a day early what the special is, because it's in there.
Yeah.
Or you can sign up for the newsletter on the Facebook page, which also has some of the YouTube links, so kind of like double threat there. But all of the information you want to get is on those pages, or you can visit them. Until then, thanks for joining us here on the Doctor's Nutrition